Today on Locked On Red Wings, we are going to recap the weekend's games, the loss to the Blackhawks in overtime, and then the dominating win over the Anaheim Ducks, thanks to just the hot start of Dominik Kubalik.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Scotty is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. Red Wings played 2 games this weekend, came away with a win and an overtime loss. But the key element of that sentence there, Scotty, is the fact that they don't have a regulation loss yet. Still big fat goose egg in that department, as they are 3-0-2 to start the season, 8 of a possible 10 points. We're going to talk about both of these games that occurred this weekend. We'll start here in the first segment, though, with the game against the Blackhawks that they lost in overtime, blew a 2-goal lead, had 2-goal leads in this game, but ultimately couldn't hold on to it, ended up losing. It was a wild game from start to finish. A lot of back and forth. There was 6 penalties for the Red Wings, 7 against the Chicago Blackhawks. There's a shorthanded goal, power play goal, a penalty shot goal. There was a little bit of everything, some things you liked, some things you hated. Scotty, what did you see that stood out to you the most in the game against the Blackhawks?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the unavoidable conversation of, like, you should have left the weekend with 4 points and you left it with 3. And, like, I know that at the end of the day, you're sitting in a fantastic situation. What is that? 8 of 10 points, possible points so far this year. Like you're doing well. Everything's, good. We don't need to dwell on it or anything, but, like, objectively, you lost a point. Like, you didn't lose a point, but you didn't capitalize. You should have had 2 points on Friday's game, and you blew it. That's the biggest thing that jumps out of you. You choke a 2-goal lead away from a bad Chicago Blackhawks team. Like, this is not I know it's a rivalry, and the arena was rocking, and there was the Detroit sucks chants and everything, and everybody hates losing to the Blackhawks as is when they're good. When they're terrible, it stings a little bit more even to not only lose to them, but blow a 2-goal lead and lose to them. Really not a good feeling. I was pretty upset after the game, to be honest with you. I was not a very happy camper. That was a really, really frustrating loss. But to turn back around in the very next game, dominate, and we'll talk about the Ducks game on its own later, but it's a really nice bounce back and something that I don't think this team of the last couple of years necessarily does. I think the old Red Wings teams kind of spiral and let that loss really get to them, and they didn't, which is good, but it's still really frustrating and still a point that they left on the table and that they should have been able to have. I didn't think Ned was very good at the end of the game. I don't think really anybody was very good at the end of the game. I think the end of the last half, the last 10 minutes of the third period was very much flashbacks to, like, the Blashill, we're up 2 goals. Let's just kind of chill and just be really, like, dump and chase about it. And let's just kind of sit back and try and play defense. And we'll be super, super conservative offensively and not really care. And it cost them. And that's not a reoccurring theme. I don't think that's something that Lalone is trying to implement. I think that was just the ebb and flow of the game. And it's unfortunate, but I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Well, so I completely agree with you. Obviously, we tend to usually agree on these types of things. But about halfway through the game, it felt like the tables were beginning to turn. The Red Wings left the first period up 2-0. I would actually go back to the first period when Dylan Larkin got hurt, and he left the ice, went to the locker room, like, hunched over in pain, and it looked like it was a real serious injury. It felt as if the Red Wings lost a lot of steam. And I mean, that's reflected in the expected goals for percentage in this game at 5-on-5. I mean, Red Wings had the edge in the first, and as the game went on, the Blackhawks, the lowly Blackhawks, as we call them. And of course, I called it at the end of the episode with Jack Bushman. We were all predicting the Red Wings win, even Jack himself. But I made the joke, like, we all predicted the Red Wings to win, so they'll end up losing. And obviously they did. That last half of the third period, that last 10 minutes, as you put it, the Red Wings were on their heels, man. That last minute, they were in the Red Wings zone, firing shots away. And I was hanging out with my buddy that night, and I told him, I'm like, I'm going to be happy. Not happy is not the right word. I'm going to breathe a sigh of relief if the Red Wings get out of the third period with a point, because they're playing so poorly right now. And they were. Now, there were some bright spots in that moment, too. Obviously, Dominik Kubalik and Hugh Suter going back to Chicago after just serving. Kubalik had 3 years. Suter had 1 year with Chicago Blackhawks. They both got a goal. Kubalik also had another assist in that game as well. He's continued to play well, and we will talk about him in the Ducks game. And obviously Larkin had a power play goal. The power play continued to build steam, and it came to a head again in the Ducks game. So there were good things in this game to talk about, but they really lost momentum as the game went on. Chicago took over, and this is not a Blackhawks team that has any right to take over the game. But again, in the end, like Ken Cal said in his season preview with us, good teams, when they lose, they get a point. And, you lost to the Blackhawks, which stinks, but you got a point. So you stole a point from the Kings.
I feel like that's different, though.
Yeah. So you stole a point from the Kings, and the Blackhawks stole a point from you.
Right.
Here you are.
That's fair. Yeah, you probably even it out if you say, oh, you should have lost the LA game. We should have won the Blackhawks game. But yeah, I view like if you're going to lose, if you lose in overtime as I don't know, like close back and forth games, or games that you're down one late in the third. Like you choked 2 goals away.
Yes.
Like that's just like there's nothing around that. Like that was a really, really poor ending to that hockey game. And again, it's frustrating. It can't happen. It was really bad hockey, but the next time they took the ice, they dominated. So short memory, really all you can ask for, I guess, in how they responded to the game. But yeah, a really ugly end to the game. I mean, there were positives in the game too, though. Like you said, I think the special teams just really stepping up, and we'll talk about them, like you said, again later in the Ducks game as well.
Except for the shorthanded goal they let up, but
right, yeah, for sure. But the success rate of the special teams so far it's just night and day. Like it's so blatantly different from not only last year, but the last 5 years of special teams on this team. It's so blatantly different. It's so reassuring. It's really nice to see. I think other just like news and notes, Raymond on the second line against Chicago, and then remained on the second line. Yeah. On Sunday, looked really good. I thought until the very end of the game when he had a really, really bad turnover that, I mean, we can call a spade a spade. It cost us the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think, frustrating loss, really frustrating loss. But to be able to turn around and punch the next team you face in the mouth is kind of reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely. So Raymond did look, obviously he had that tough turnover to end the game in overtime, but he looked good in that game. He was one of the better forwards in that game. And I was a little concerned when they moved him down to line number 2 because of the chemistry that he has with Larkin, but he hasn't really seemed to miss a step. I know people are chomping at the bit for him to start getting on the score sheet with goals. It's going to come, guys. Like, he's fine. Like, watch him off the puck. He looks good. He's going to be there. But really, I want to shout out the Chicago Blackhawks game, and even some in this game too. The fourth line in the Chicago Blackhawks game of Hugh Suter, Joe Veleno, and Adam Ernie looked great. They're the best possession-wise on the score sheet as well. At 5-on-5, they had the best relative and just not overall expected goals for percentage. So best shot attempts out of the entire team on the ice, and just like relative off the ice as well. They were all over the place. They looked really good. Obviously, Hugh Suter had that goal as well. And then they looked they looked so good that, and we'll talk about it in the Ducks game, they moved up to line number 3. That became line number 3 against the Ducks. And they, again, looked really good. Joe Veleno had a goal. So there were positives to take away from this. Maatta got another point. He extended his hot start as well. So did David Perron get a point?
Juggernaut, Maatta.
Yeah, right. Dude, David Perron did not get a point in this game, it looks like. And I'm just so used to him getting points now. But he did get points in the game against the Anaheim Ducks. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, we'll talk about this in the Anaheim Ducks game. When you're looking at these positive takeaways, it cannot be overstated how good the new acquisitions have been for the Detroit Red Wings. Ben Sherratt, too, in that Ducks game. And we'll talk about it. I should get to an ad read before I start getting excited.
I think the biggest thing is, even with the loss on Friday, the one thing that has been constant all season so far is like this offense has been legit. And like the special teams has been really good. The even strength has been really good. The goal totals have been really solid. The shot totals have been really solid. Like this offense has been really good and has put up legitimate goal totals in every game so far this season. So I think that is the most apparent thing to me so far. And as we get further and further into the season, that continues to hold up. So that's a really reassuring thing, because we know that the defense at some points this season is going to have its ebbs and flows and is going to struggle. Ned hasn't really had a very super great performance yet. So like we know that there are going to be some times when we give up decently high goal totals, but it's nice to know that there's at least a chance that this offense can outscore almost anybody put in front of them. And that's what it looks like so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they haven't scored less than 3 goals in a game yet, which is incredible to think about considering where this team was last year. And granted, 5 games in, but that's still a really good start to the season. And you can build off that.
Absolutely.
Just like you can build off the safety that SimpliSafe provides you. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe Home Security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. You will know, because SimpliSafe is just all the cameras, all the pieces they provide you, you're going to feel safe and secure in your own house. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. Here's why you're going to love it. With 24/7 professional monitoring, SimpliSafe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Their monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNHL. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNHL to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are going to transition now to talking about the exciting win, the one that's fresh on our minds. We want to get away from the overtime loss, the blown lead, get that out of our minds. Let's talk about the Anaheim Ducks win, because they routed the Ducks 5-1. Complete performance. Wonderful to see. I mean, Scotty, I'm going to let you. I have two things that I want to lead off with. And I'm going to let you decide which one we lead off with. Do we talk about Dominik Kubalik or just continue to talk about how great the special teams have been?
I want to start with the special teams as a whole.
Okay, let's go.
It's been phenomenal. And the cool part is it hasn't, at least especially the last few games, it hasn't been like a one or the other thing either. Like they've both been really clicking the last 2 or 3 games. I know they started off, they didn't have a power play goal in the first couple of games, but this game was a power play, masterclass. They have three power play goals.
Yep.
Just absolute domination. And that's how good teams are made. 5-on-5 hockey is the variance between the top and bottom of 5-on-5 hockey is not a lot at the NHL level. These are all really talented dudes. So you have to take advantage of the special teams. You have to take advantage of the power play. And that's what truly separates the good teams from the bad teams.
Absolutely.
If you look, Ken Cal talked about it, actually, I'm pretty sure. When you look at the end of the season, it's not just, the best teams have like all of the best players or have some perfect power play system, and that's why those are at the top. No, it's a direct correlation. Like the teams that score more when they have a whole man advantage are the better team because
True.
they are scoring when they have more players on the ice. They're taking advantage of power play opportunities. And that's how it works. And like, so to see a single game where the Detroit Red Wings power play scored 3 goals and then we still have a perfect penalty kill, right? 5 games in. I don't know. Like it's obviously the perfect penalty kill won't last. And I'm sure we'll go through ups and downs of the power play this year, but it's still objectively, it is very clearly different than the last few years and is very clearly better and in a better place and a better system and whatever you want to say. It is night and day. It's a feel thing. It's a eye test thing. It's a stats thing. Everything. It feels way different. The special teams does now than it has in a long time.
Speaking first about the power play, when the season started and they started off not being able to get a power play goal, I was saying on our podcast that they still looked good. They were moving the puck well. They just were struggling to finish. And they were shooting the puck too. You know, they're getting good opportunities. It just wasn't finding the back of the net. And it seems like over the last couple of games, they figured it out. You obviously had that first power play goal by David Perron. Then your Dylan Larkin's power play goal against Chicago. Coming into the game against the Anaheim Ducks, you were 26th in the league in power play goals. You only had 2 out of, I think, 12 chances or whatever you had. Well, then you scored 3 power play goals in this game. You're now all the way up to 15th in the league. And that also speaks to how early the season is, that 3 power play goals, which is a lot, guys. 3 power play goals is insane in one game. That's nutty. But that launched you all the way up from 26th to 15th in the league. And again, early in the season, but that's right where you want to be. You want to be in the top half of the league with both your power play and penalty kill if you want to go places.
Yeah,
now your power play.
Again, that's including first whatever it was 2 games of the season going over. You know what I mean? Like if you chalk that up to a slow start and feel like you're going to get, not that you're going to get 3 goals every single time out there, obviously, but you know, if you think that that middle of the pack kind of 17th to 14, 13, maybe even range is somewhat sustainable, then like that's a great sign. Yeah.
Well, and also like your goals for per game right now is straight 3. And that is such an important thing. The fact that you're scoring goals, not just on the power play, but at 5-on-5, like teams that score 3 goals at minimum are going to win more games than not. Because your goals against right now is 240, and you want that to be under. I mean, obviously you want one to be over and one to be under, but those are numbers that were flipped last season. You couldn't score 3 goals, and you couldn't stop 3 goals. And now, right now, through 5 games of the season, like you look like a completely different team. And going into the penalty kills, obviously you have 100%. So you're tied for first in the league with, I think, just St. Louis and the Islanders, who also have 100%.
I think they said there was
penalty kill.
They said on the broadcast, which the ESPN broadcast on Sunday's game was pretty brutal, to be honest with you.
It was really bad. Like we don't have to get into it because we have so much to talk about from the game, but like their system wasn't working. They
had mics
pieces.
cutting in and out. It was not. There was a lot of reasons it was not great, but to the point, they did say some of I think they said that we were only one of 2 or 3, I guess, teams that were still at 100% of the power play.
And I mean, and what's made the penalty kill so successful is something that is so wild to me, because my entire life I was raised, and again, I only played house hockey my entire career, so it's not like I have like a ton of experience.
You win tonight?
We did 4-3 in overtime against the team.
Big time players make big time plays, baby.
My big time play was intentionally benching myself in overtime because I provide no offense. They're like, Fish, you want to go out? I'm like, you're good, you got this. And then we won. So
I think you should win player of the game for a move like that.
Right? The thing that makes the penalty kill so good is they're so aggressive. And that flies in the face of everything I've ever learned. Like penalty kills, you want to play, you want to play the box, the diamond, in the zone, and you want to keep them to the outside. Don't let them get shots on the inside. But they just straight up, and teams will figure this out eventually, I'm sure, but they straight up, guy gets the puck, they go straight at him. And it doesn't give the player time to think and make a pass. They're so used to having time in the zone to make a play that when they don't, they just cough it up. And the Red Wings have had 2 or 3 opportunities on the power or on the penalty kill. Rasmussen made a nice play to get in alone with the goalie. Suter had a breakaway. Both were shorthanded because they've been playing so aggressive, and that's what's led to them this early success. Now, assuming they can continue to adjust when teams adjust to them, that'll continue that success. But they've looked really good on special teams, and they've looked at good at 5-on-5 as a whole. Their offense is just kicking ass. Their depth has been so good, Scotty. I mean, you lost Bertuzzi and you lost Vrana, and Kubalik slid up there on the first line. And we'll talk about Kubalik in the third segment, so don't you forget. We're going to talk about him. But you move Perron up there on the second line to fill that hole, and Zadina up there on the second line. Perron was already on the second line, sorry. We move Zadina up there on that second line, and he's looked fine. He's looked good. He's been getting chances. He just can't. The guy needs to buy a goal. It's the same thing as last year. He's playing really, really well off the puck, but man, he cannot buy a goal offensively.
I think he's looked good this weekend.
Good.
Like I really did think those were two of the better games we've seen from him in a while. It's just he literally cannot buy a bucket. Like he cannot hit the back of the net.
But it's just so refreshing that, obviously you lose Jacob Vrana to the player assistance program and you take as much time as you need to get back. And Tyler Bertuzzi, I'm assuming broken wrist. I don't know. They never told you. Upper body. He blocked a shot off his wrist.
Upper body injury, Brian.
Yeah. But he's gone for 4 to 6 weeks. But these players, they stepped up, they slid up, and those lines are still producing. And that just, you cannot overstate how important the acquisitions that Steve Yzerman made in the offseason. Kubalik's been incredible. Perron's been incredible. Kopp hasn't really shown up on the score sheet, but he's been good on the defensive zone. He's been good as a second-line center. I mean, outside of faceoffs, which we also have to talk about, Dave looked electric. But we got to get to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Dominik Kubalik, and we'll try and finish up. We got a lot. There's so many things we could talk about from the Anaheim game alone, but I don't know if we're going to get to all of them. But hey, we have an off day on Monday, so we can get to that for that episode, that recording. When we come back, Dominik Kubalik. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I ranted there to end segment 2, so why don't you take us away with Dominik Kubalik? I know you got a pretty fuzzy feeling in your gut right now.
Man, he is everything that we talked about in the offseason. Like when we brought this guy in, and I remember you and I had a conversation. We were talking about, who are our favorite signings? Who are our favorite people we brought in? And mine was Kubalik, and this is exactly why. And like, obviously, he's not going to maintain whatever he's got, like a 1.3 points a game or something ridiculous right now. I think he's got 8 and 5, but he is going to lead the team in shots as a forward like every night, and it's awesome. And yes, he's going to have 2-3 game stretches where he doesn't score a goal and whatnot, but this dude grips it and rips it. Like he's going to have 3, 4, 5 shots as a winger every single night, and it is awesome. I cannot stress how much I love it, because so many times last year we were yelling at our TVs, shoot the freaking puck, shoot, somebody shoot, and the passiveness from that era, and just like the whole last 2 years, the passiveness of the offense and whatnot. He's going to go in there, and if he even has a slight opening, even on an ounce of daylight, he's gonna let it rip, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And obviously, again, the production so far has been unbelievable with 8 points in 5 games. But even when he's not putting up points, like there's gonna be stretches where he goes whatever, a couple of games, 3 games in a row without recording a point, and I'm still gonna be very pleased at him and what he provides this team, as long as the shot totals are still up. And that's what he does. And that's what I fully expect him to continue to do. And I think that's why he's so dynamic and such an important asset for this team. I cannot stress how much I adore Dominik Kubalik and what he's provided so far this season. He is, like I said, when we were talking in the offseason and talking about his role on the team and what he'll bring, he has fit that bill exactly.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe the Chicago Blackhawks saw less success from him because they're asking more out of him than he is. Like the Red Wings seem to deploy him in a very specific manner that is exactly plays to his strengths as just a pure shooter. And we talked about it with Jack Bushman about like Jay Fresh's card and talking about how like that's what he is. He scores a lot when he shoots the puck. Right. And so putting him in positions to score is going to be rewarded more times than not. And I mean, he's got 8 points in 5 games. I think it's the second fastest start a player has had in a tenure at the Red Wings since like Paul Coffey in the 90s, which is incredible company to be in. So he's been, I wouldn't even say he's been as advertised. I would say he's better than as advertised. I mean, we talked about him as a player that Steve Yzerman took a flyer on, somebody who Had 30 goals, but has seen less success the last couple of years. And so far, I mean, was it 4? Now he's got 4 goals. He had a 3-point night tonight. He's just been so dynamic for the Detroit. I wouldn't even say dynamic, honestly. He's not really. I don't even think he has been that dynamic. He's really good at one thing, and he just keeps doing that one thing, and he keeps getting rewarded for it. And that's just what's great about him. What's so great about him? Same thing can be said about David Perron. I mean, David Perron's in a very similar vein where you deploy him. Now, David Perron's a lot more dynamic than Kubalik, where he at 5-on-5 he excels as well. He's a great player, just in general, but on the power play especially, he's also got a cannon of a one-timer. He knows how to get open, and he's a great passer at that. So he's just those two guys. You bring them in to score goals, and they've done just that. It's really refreshing to see that success. So, I mean, obviously, David Perron had a power play goal in this game as well. Mm-hmm. Kubalik had a power play goal. Larkin had a power play goal. Can't come playing in this game. He looked good. Of course, you want to see that out of your captain. I think he had the first goal.
He did. He had the opening goal. Yeah.
Yeah. The opening goal. That was a power play.
It was just also kind of a scare on Friday. Like, if we could just go 2 weeks without somebody cross-checking Larkin in the back, that'd be awesome. We haven't gone 2 weeks without that since like Obama was president. Like this, it's ridiculous, dude. It's so ridiculous. It's been like that for the last 3 years. Like he just keeps getting cross-checked in the lower back over and over again. It's so annoying. Yeah. So nice to see everything's fine and he was out there and no restrictions and he was totally fine, thankfully. But golly, man.
It was nice to see the Redwoods get rewarded as well. Oscar Sundqvist had a nice assist on the Dominik Kubalik goal. He's the one who set him up for that power play goal. Elmer Soderblom going to the net, bouncing it home off a second chance from Michael Rasmussen. So it's nice to see that those players are still getting rewarded, even though they got slid down to the 4th line. Faceoffs, that's a big thing. That's where a lot of the Red Wings struggles have come in, and we haven't really talked about it. We should have talked about that in segment 1 because that was a huge reason why they lost that game against the Blackhawks. Yeah. I mean,
100 career points for Sundqvist, by the way.
Good for him, man.
Shout out.
Good for him. Shout out. The Red Wings in this game, face-off percentage, better than the Ducks, which is why not why. There's a lot of reasons why, but that helps them win the game.
For sure.
So you got to win face-offs. And the big struggle is the Red Wings have 4 centers that are all left-handed. So in situations you prefer right-handed, they just don't have that option. So it's been an issue for the Red Wings. They're going to have to find a way to adjust or find a right-handed winger who can just take the face-offs. Because if they can't, then, you're in for some hurt later on in that regard. Because look at it. The Red Wings scored a goal winning a face-off in the Blackhawks game. I think the game tying goal was off a face-off they lost in the defensive zone. You got to win face-offs. You got to get initial possession. That's huge. So I just wanted to bring that up because they've been struggling in the face-off dot. In fact, I would recommend you guys to go subscribe to Sean Shapiro's newsletter. He is, I think he's freelance right now. He's just got his own little blog post going, but his newsletter is great. He's very insightful. He just wrote an article about this very topic, and it's great. So I would recommend you guys to go follow him on Twitter, Sean Shapiro, and follow his work because it went really in depth on that. He also did an article about Sherratt and Seider. Speaking of which, I thought Sherratt I thought he looked great in the game against the Ducks. He is a menace, man. The amount of hits the Red Wings had, the Red Wings out-hit heavily the Ducks. It wasn't just him, but him especially. The physicality from the Red Wings, I think, had the Ducks playing a little bit scared.
Man, sure. I'm going to keep saying it. I have yet to have the Sherratt taketh away. And I'm sure it's coming. And every team that he's played for, their hosts of the Locked On or their, fan base has made it very clear that he'll have his ups and he'll have his downs. But I think Ben Sherratt's been fantastic so far this season. And I think that one of the big reasons is because of the physicality he brings, and I'm sure he'll get burned on it at some points this season. But I think that pairing him with Seider is just a match made in heaven for where they're both at in their careers. And I could not be happier with what that pair has done and been so far this season. So I continue to be impressed by Ben Sherratt. And again, we're 5 games into a 4-year deal. So I'm going to hold off judgment on the long-term implications of everything, but 5 games in, he's looking pretty darn good.
I mean, so far he has been proof that sometimes the analytics don't tell the full story. I mean, I especially, and I'll own up to it. Again, 5 games in, there's a lot left to be proven, but I especially was critical of that signing by Steve Eisman. 4 years, like $4.5 million. I was like, for a guy who everyone we've spoken to is like, why would you do that? He's been really great. And he has been, like I said, proof that sometimes the analytics don't tell the full story so far, at least. Lindstrom and Hronik and Haig, I thought in the game against the Ducks, and again, it was just all-around domination. Everyone looked good, but I want to give a special shout-out because Hronik looked stellar in the offensive zone. Wasn't really rewarded for it on the score sheet, but he was mixing it up. He was getting free, making space, making things happen. He looked great. Defensively, Lindstrom and Haig looked great. In fact, if I recall, they were the best on the defense at expected goals for percentage relative. So compared to their teammates, they were the best players at creating and defending against shots against compared to their teammates. Phenomenal stuff. Gustav with a plus 43%, and then Haig with plus 38%. Pius Suter, Adam Ernie. This is what you love to see. You look at expected goals for percentage relative, Scotty, and you would expect your top line players to be up there. I mean, you kind of hope they would be, but you love the fact that if I'm going down the list right now, Gustav Lindstrom, Robert Haig, Pius Suter, Adam Ernie. By the way, Adam Ernie, another guy who's looked fantastic. Like I said before, I think he understands his role maybe in jeopardy, being like that, like he might be that next guy once Fabry gets healthy and Bertuzzi and Vrana get healthy. So he's been playing out of his mind. His effort level is so good. He's been rewarded for it every single time. Elmer Soderblom, Joe Valeno, Michael Rasmussen, Oscar Sundqvist. You don't get a top 6 forward until David Perron in that game against the Ducks.
Who scored?
Like, that is awesome to see. Like,
absolutely.
The fact that your depth pieces were the best players on your team in a 5-1 win is really reassuring to see. Obviously, now the flip side to that is like, why weren't your best players playing that well? They all played well. They all really played well. I mean,
Larkin and Perron scored, man.
I mean, right? It was great. So, again, that was all at 5-on-5. But that was just, it was a really reassuring to see. And
also,
I think,
for whatever it's worth, that Ducks defense, I'll tell you what, that Ducks defense is treacherous.
Oh, yeah.
That was brutal, dude. I mean, seriously, like, we talk about, like, we know bad defenses. We saw it last year, and, like, we know that there's still some issues they're ironing out this season. But, like, that Ducks defense is brutal. And Gibson is unbelievable. And it's really disappointing, I guess, like if you're a Ducks fan, to watch that great of a goalie performance. He still gave up 5.
But he faced 41 shots.
Right. Yeah. Really disheartening. But that defense is atrocious. So, like, they're still going to be, I don't think we have to worry about, there's a lot of Red Wings fans that don't really like the Ducks or Zegras because of last year. So I don't think we'll have to worry about them being too competitive this year if you fall into that camp. But yeah, that we play them again relatively soon. Like in the next couple of weeks, we play them again already. So that hopefully 2 more points, because that defense is pretty freaking brutal.
Yeah. So that brings me to my final point about your opponents, the Red Wings opponents so far. But before I get to that, I do want to also shout out Ville Husso, who did make 30+ saves in this game, only letting 1 goal. So, I mean, despite the fact that the Red Wings dominated on the score sheet, he did face 30 shots, and he did show up big again. He's taken another step forward towards that 1A role here early in the season. But you got to also keep in mind when you're looking at the Red Wings record, and I don't want to like bring everybody down because it was 8 points in 10 games is great, no matter how you slice it. Because it's whatever game, every night, that's what makes hockey great, any given night, right? But 4 of the first 5 opponents Red Wings have faced likely are not going to be going to the playoffs. And it's a strong likely. I mean, you played the Canadiens, who are trying to tank for Bedard. You played the Devils, who are trying to take a step forward, but just probably aren't going to be there this year. You got the Kings, who are a bona fide threat in the Pacific Division. And you got a point from them. You stole a point from them, which was a great game. You lost in overtime to the Blackhawks, who are another team that's probably going to be trying for Bedard and might be trading away Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, but that's not necessarily relevant to this conversation. And then you played the Anaheim Ducks, who are another team that is going through a rebuild. I don't really know where in the rebuild the Ducks are, because they took a weird step forward last year and then collapsed at the end. So I don't know where they're at, but they're not a playoff contender. So when you look at the record, and it's okay to get excited, I'm excited. You're going to ride this wave as long as possible. Keep in mind that they haven't really been challenged by a top end opponent outside of LA yet. You haven't played your Tampa Bays and your Torontos, who are for some reason down there in the standings of the division. Cold starts for both those teams. But, you haven't played your Vegases yet. You haven't played your Calgarys yet. You haven't played your Floridas. You haven't played your Washingtons or your Pittsburghs. Like, those are the teams that you need to watch out for.
Do you want to hear the next 5?
Go for it.
New Jersey, Tuesday again.
Okay.
Then it's Boston, Minnesota, Buffalo, Washington, and then the Islanders.
Buffalo's out to a hot start, too. I think they're like second in the division right now.
That is and then even after that's the Rangers. So like you have the Devils on Tuesday, and then after that, your next 5 opponents after the Devils are Boston, Minnesota, Buffalo, Washington, the Islanders, and the Rangers. That's
and both Buffalo and the
that's
Islanders
going to be an eye-opening stretch there to see how legit the start of the season has been, for sure.
Well, and then let me turn this on its head. I'm being negative about, they're getting points against bad teams. It's important to get those points against bad teams.
Yeah. That's how you succeed. That's you're not going to be able to beat every good team. That's obviously, even the best teams don't beat the other best teams every time they play them. That's why they're the best teams. Like the reason they have a ton of points is because they take care of business against bad teams. So can't ask for anything more, but I'm very, very intrigued about what's going to happen over the next 6 or 7 games, for sure.
So yeah, we'll find out very shortly, like how good this Red Wings team is, but it's very vital to get every point you can as fast as you can. Like the Red Wings are getting themselves.
Like New Jersey becomes like instantly much more important, weirdly, just because of how tough the next 5 games after it are.
Exactly. That does it for me, man. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah. So I'm going to need Steve Yzerman. Here's how you fix the face-off problem. All right.
I'm
Pick up
right-handed.
the phone. You're going to call Dallas, okay? You're going to say, you know what? You have a friend of ours, and we want him to come back home. Luke Glendening back in the wing wheel.
I don't hate it. I like it.
What's my role on the team? Derek, you're going to win us face-offs, Luke. That's what you're going to do.
All right. We'll be back on Tuesday with a new episode. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.